much for joining us. And we begin tonight, obviously, with the major news of the week, the dramatic release of one man's painstaking work and the impact it may have on history. That's right. It's Queen Elizabeth's 93rd birthday today, and that guy just fucking nailed it. But obviously there was one other major story this week concerning the latest instalment in the ongoing saga that we've been calling Stupid Watergate. Basically, Watergate, but if Nixon had been kicked in the head by a billy goat, and also if that billy goat had been the White House Chief of Staff. And the reason we're talking about this is that on Thursday, the Mueller Report was finally released. It was over 400 pages long, and many in the media chose to make a feature of processing it in plain sight. MSNBC had Ari Melber reading it in the corner of the studio, as if relegated to the kids' table, while New York One aired 30 uninterrupted seconds of their printer getting ready to print the report out. But once the Mueller Report had actually been read, it became clear that there was a lot in it.
Mueller confirmed that Russia interfered in our election, made repeated contacts with Trump associates, but did not conclude that the Trump team engaged in a criminal conspiracy with Russia.
But the report said several actions by the president were investigated as potentially amounting to obstruction of justice. Mueller's team says if we had confidence that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state.
And that last one is a pretty conspicuous non-exoneration. If you were interviewing a job applicant and they told you, just so you know, I wasn't found guilty of fucking my neighbour's mailboxes, but I also specifically wasn't found innocent, you would not necessarily rule them out, but you'd definitely think twice about hiring them. And some of the details in this report were incredible.
When Trump learned that special counsel Robert Mueller was appointed, he slumped back in his chair and said, "Oh my God, this is terrible. This is the end of my presidency. I'm effed."
Fucked. He said, "I'm fucked." And while we obviously don't know whether Trump will face any repercussions from this report, I'd like to just live for a little longer in the moment of him saying, "This is the end of my presidency, I'm fucked." In fact, I'd like to take some artistic license to fully paint that scene for you. Trump, upon learning Robert Mueller was appointed, slumping back in his chair. Meanwhile, Ivanka is playing fetch with Don Jr. Eric's tongue is stuck to a somehow frozen flagpole. Reince Priebus is walking around with his head inside a honeypot. Jared is standing motionless directly in front of a blank wall. Steve Bannon is stress eating a bowl of used syringes. And Stephen Miller is gleefully pulling the legs off a spider. While Trump says those beautiful words as tears roll down his cheeks, "This is the end of my presidency, I'm fucked." And right at that very moment, a pigeon flies into the room and shits in his mouth. It is a masterpiece. And I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying we don't definitively know that it didn't. And look, we clearly can't cover everything in the report tonight, so instead I'd like to concentrate on two key factors that may have saved the president here. Incompetence when it comes to conspiracy with Russia, and disobedience when it comes to obstruction of justice. So let's start with incompetence, meaning let's start with Michael Cohen. Because the report spells out that Cohen was in contact with Russians through much of the campaign, mostly concerning Trump's efforts to build a tower in Moscow, which in and of itself is already wildly inappropriate. It is clearly compromising for a presidential candidate to be asking for business favours from a hostile foreign government. But from the very beginning, Cohen was laughably inept. At one point, he reached out to Putin's press spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, but couldn't get through. It turns out that's because he meant to email prpeskova@prpress.gov, but actually emailed .gov instead. And .gov, of course, sends you right to the server for the new HBO series Game of Flounder, where powerful flounder families fight for control of the 7 sandbars. It starts in June. This network is fucked. Another even more ridiculous case of Cohen bungling contact with Russians involved Dmitry Klokov, a former press secretary to Russia's energy minister. Klokov's ex-wife had contacted Ivanka, offering his assistance to the Trump campaign. So, that is someone with ties to the Russian government offering help to elect Trump. Ivanka forwarded that email to Cohen, who Googled Dmitry Klokov and concluded that the person they must be talking about was a former Olympic weightlifter by that name, a man who has videos online like this. Cohen apparently saw that and thought, well, I definitely got the right Dmitry Klokov. Apparently, Russia's energy minister's press secretary is completely jacked. And good for you, bruh. Hustle for that muscle. Sore today, strong tomorrow, am I right? Get swole, feed the soul. From one beef towel to another, respect. And from all appearances, the real Klokov kept trying to set up a meeting between Trump and Vladimir Putin. But Cohen basically blew that proposal off, which may not be surprising, given that even during his interviews with Mueller, Cohen still appeared to believe that the Klokov he spoke with was the Olympic weightlifter. And of course he was confused. He was probably still trying to figure out why deceased German ice hockey goalie Robert Mueller wanted to speak with him in the first place. And it wasn't just Cohen. The report found multiple instances where people tied to the Russian government offered Trump's campaign assistance, and in some instances, the campaign was receptive. But the thing that seemed to stop closer coordination from happening was often cartoonish levels of disorganization and incompetence. On top of which, there were times when the Trump's team's ignorance of basic legal concepts seems to have actively helped shield them from criminal liability. Most notably when it came to the infamous Trump Tower meeting featuring Don Jr., Jared, Paul Manafort, and a Russian offering more dirt.
Mueller's team concluded it would unlikely be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the meeting participants had general knowledge that their conduct was unlawful.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? It is going to be hard to prove that this guy had general knowledge that his conduct could be breaking the law, or that he had general knowledge of anything at all, other than what it feels like to watch flags get more hugs from your dad than you get if you live to be 1,000. So when it comes to conspiracy, Trump's saving grace may have been that, despite Russians wanting to help, everyone around him was too inept to work with them. So as for the other major question in Mueller's report, obstruction of justice, Trump's saving grace there may have been that, despite ample evidence that he tried to do it, everyone around him was too disobedient to listen.
The report paints a remarkable portrait of the president as a man obsessed with the Russia investigation, trying to seize control of the inquiry through his White House aides. It highlights at least 10 current and former administration officials or associates who did not carry out his orders.
Wow. The news that the president ordered subordinates to do things that might constitute obstruction and then they just ignored him is both reassuring and also terrifying. That's like hearing your spouse say, you don't have to worry about the snake because the baby killed it. Well, hold on. I'm glad the snake is dead, but that means there was a fucking snake in there. And it also means our baby has snake-killing strength. I'm sorry, there's a lot to process here. I'm happy, I'm relieved, but I'm also angry and confused. You're throwing a lot of shit at me. And there are multiple instances of people ignoring the president's instructions, like when Trump asked Corey Lewandowski to send his attorney general a message.
The president gave him orders to tell the attorney general, then Jeff Sessions, to curtail the scope of the Russia investigation. Now, Lewandowski, according to the report, never followed through on it, attempting to pass it off to another aide who did also not follow through on what the president instructed.
So that's a chain of 2 people failing to follow through on a demand from the president. And he didn't stop there, because that aide then passed Trump's order off to an assistant who opened the window and shouted it to a groundskeeper who wrote it down and taped it to a Roomba that was passing by, which drove itself straight into the river, because this isn't why it got into government. Although the most shocking example of the president being ignored involved former White House counsel Don McGahn. Trump apparently called and directed him to have Mueller removed as special counsel. McGahn refused, but Trump kept pushing until finally this happened.
Instead of carrying out Trump's request, McGahn decided he would quit instead. Quote, he called his lawyer, drove to the White House, packed up his office, prepared to submit a resignation letter with his chief of staff, told Reince Priebus that the president has asked him to do crazy blank, and informed Priebus and Bannon that he was leaving.
Holy fucking blank. Preparing to quit because you're being asked to do crazy shit isn't what you expect from the White House counsel. It's what you expect from Nicolas Cage's personal assistant. No, Nicholas! I'm not constructing a 10-foot voodoo doll of you out of rare gemstones and dead crows. I have a master's degree. This is crazy shit, Nicholas. It's crazy shit. And look, you might take some reassurance from the fact that so many of the people in Trump's orbit did not do as he asked. But the worrying thing is, lots of those people are gone now. And the newer figures seem very much on the same page as the president. Just look at how the report was released. Not only did Trump's Attorney General William Barr vastly downplay its contents in his letter summarizing it to Congress, but he also gave a preemptive press conference to spin the report's contents, repeating Trump's favorite phrase, "no collusion," and making excuses for the president like this.
As the special counsel's report acknowledges, there is substantial evidence to show that the president was frustrated and angered by his sincere belief that the investigation was undermining his presidency, propelled by his political opponents, and fueled by illegal leaks.
Okay, so first of all, Donald Trump has never once in his life been motivated by a sincere belief. He's motivated by two things only. One, the icy howling wind swirling in the yawning chasm of pitch blackness where his soul should be. And two, the hopeless pursuit of the only woman he truly loves. And when you look at his presidency this way, it's actually quite romantic. And also, if I may quote the advice that Alec Baldwin's attorney gives his client, being angry is not the same thing as being innocent. And that wasn't the only thing that Barr said that, in the wake of actually reading the report, seems laughably and willfully misleading.
The White House fully cooperated with the special counsel's investigation. The president took no act that in fact deprived the special counsel of the documents and witnesses necessary to complete his investigation.
But that is, at best, a gross mischaracterization of what the report actually said, because full cooperation would have involved sitting down for an interview, which Trump did not do. And Mueller not only found Trump's written answers inadequate, he also wrote that he engaged in efforts to curtail the special counsel's investigation and prevent the disclosure of evidence to it, including through public and private contacts with potential witnesses, which is pretty much the exact opposite of what Barr said. It's like Barr summarised the Twilight novels as a girl in Florida goes to third base with a Wookiee. No! No! That's not what happens. I'm not even sure we're reading the same underlying material. I've read the real book where a dog man falls in love with a baby. Respect the text. Honour the written word. Look, all of this is clearly very depressing, and there's still so much that we don't know. There are significant redactions within the report, as well as references to 14 investigations that Mueller handed off to other prosecutors, 12 of which remain secret. And that can make this feel a little anticlimactic, especially because, ever since Barr's summary came out, the Trump administration has been taking an unearned victory lap.
The idea that any of us, and me as a campaign manager, would cheat, steal, lie, cut corners, talk to Russians was an insult from the beginning.
But was it, though? Was it? An insult would be to say that Kellyanne Conway died many years ago and is now a skin suit occupied and operated by 300 rats who've evolved the ability to lie. That's an insult. That's what an insult is. A fact, however, is that the Mueller report explicitly shows Trump and his associates doing many of the things that she just listed. Because here's the important thing to remember. The report only vindicates the administration on their own false premises. A year ago, we pointed out that Trump and his team were trying to center the narrative on collusion, despite the fact that that term has no specific legal meaning in criminal law. But by reframing the investigation that way, Trump ensured that anything short of Mueller publishing 400 pages of text messages between him and Putin gaming out election fraud meant the whole thing was a complete waste of time. So Mueller's report did not find collusion and wasn't trying to, because that word doesn't even apply here, and it didn't establish that Trump's team was part of a criminal conspiracy to interfere with the election. But it found a lot of other stuff. Because just consider what we learned or had confirmed this week. Russia interfered in our election and made efforts to help Trump win. While his campaign did not provably cooperate with Russia, they seemed eager to accept their help in a way that no one should be comfortable with. Also, Trump may have obstructed justice, and if he didn't, it might only be because people who work for him ignored his orders. And on top of all of this, the Attorney General, the nation's top law enforcement official, has proven himself to be a dishonest hack. And I'm not saying that any of that is good news, but it is definitely good that we know about it. The point is, having the knowledge that the Mueller report provides is infinitely better than the alternative, because that knowledge can inform Congress going forward and, crucially, voters a year and a half from now. And the alternative is for America to end up like Michael Cohen, perpetually confused, easily manipulated, and never fully understanding how a guy with a full-time job as a press secretary can also be such a max-jacked, certifiable meat king. And now, this.
And now, in honor of Easter, fuck you, peeps.
If you love the Easter marshmallow treat, peeps, you're gonna love this story.
I hate them.
Yeah! Everybody hates peeps!
Do you like regular peeps?
No, I would rather eat dirt.
Fuck yeah! Dirt rules! Peeps suck!
Peeps are like the candy corn around Halloween. You either love them or you don't, like some people. And we're going to tell you about where you can put or shove those, put those peeps.
Hear that, America? You can take your peep and shove it all the way up your actual asshole!
I posted this to Facebook last week. No. Marshmallow Peeps coffee creamer. No.
No!
What do you think Peeps is on that list?
It's not on the list because it's gross.
Not a fan of marshmallows, huh?
Not a fan of Peeps.
The news lady is correct! Peeps are gross!
We continue talking about it like they're really popular, and it's like a 50-50 split, but everybody I talk to is not a fan of Peeps.
That's right, Peep fans! You don't exist!
Moving on. Finally tonight, with all the talk of the Mueller Report, we thought it might be nice to end this show on the exact opposite of that. And to do that, we turned to Japan, the country that gave us Pokemon. And, oh my God, it's a Jigglypuff. I've never seen one of these in the wild before. Okay, stay calm, quick. Take out a Pokeball and slowly and carefully throw it. Are you ready? And throw. Throw it. Oh, God! Oh, God, you threw it too hard! You killed Jigglypuff! Jigglypuff is dead now! Why did you throw it so hard? Anyway, where was I? Oh, that's right, Japan. There is something amazing happening over there right now. As we've discussed before, Japan is home to thousands of mascots for everything from museums to prisons to entire towns and cities. You may remember, we loved that idea so much that we actually made our own unofficial mascots for various US government agencies. Well, it turns out we are not the only ones who've decided to make some less than official mascots.
A rogue mascot is causing a lot of controversy in one Japanese city.
Oh man, meet Chiijohn, the unsanctioned otter mascot that is gaining popularity on social media thanks to its edgy personality. Video of Chiijohn swinging a weed eater, and you can see him there dancing on a pole.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yes, your eyes are not deceiving you. That is video of a Japanese mascot on a stripper pole, presumably at a strip club called There Are Way More People Who Are Into This Sort of Thing Than You Think. But it is my absolute honour tonight to introduce you to Chiijohn, and you are going to be glad that I did. I know that he may look like half a Vienna finger that took too much ecstasy in the 90s, but Chiijohn is, in his own words, a 0-year-old fairy baby who plays around super actively every day. As you can tell, Chiijohn is a giant otter wearing a turtle as a hat, which is, incidentally, already my favourite sentence of all time, right next to Welcome to the John Oliver Koala Chlamydia Ward. The story, though, of what's going on with Chiijohn is a little complicated. But in a nutshell, there's a city in Japan called Susaki. Susaki's official mascot is Chiijohn, a magnificent giant otter wearing a ramen dish for a hat. Excellent. Until recently, the city also had an honorary tourism ambassador, an actual otter named Chiijohn. As it happens, Chiijohn, the actual otter, has a mascot otter, and that is what Chiijohn is. The point is, there are 3 otters, 2 of which are named Chiijohn, and the mascot Chiijohn was never formally affiliated with the city of Susaki. It's that simple. And the unofficial mascot Chiijohn has been producing some bizarre videos. Not just the stripper pole one, but also this one where Chiijohn flips a car with its bare paws. Now, Susaki reportedly received over 100 calls from around Japan complaining about Chiijohn's behaviour, and earlier this year, the city attempted to distance themselves from it by declining to renew the real Chiijohn as its tourism ambassador. Basically, the city cut ties with the real otter because of the things the fake otter did. Which is a real shame, because Chiijohn has been a lot of fun. Its Twitter account is full of crazy shit like this. Now, you might be wanting to ask, How does an umbrella-wielding, coked-up otter being assaulted in a windowless room encourage tourism to the small Japanese port city of Susaki? Well, I'm on TV, and I'm talking about the small Japanese port city of Susaki, so that should answer your stupid fucking question. The point is, every Chiijohn video is a work of art. Take this one, for example, titled With My Friends. It's understandable to have a lot of questions after watching that, like, what am I watching, who's the karate cat, and why is Chiijohn angry with that inflatable pole? But you'll notice that am I bored is not one of the questions you're asking there. Violence is actually something of a theme with Chiijohn. Here is another video that starts charming and then has a bit of a turn. It is a testament to the utter brilliance of that video that I've watched it literally dozens of times, and not once have I given a moment's thought to whether or not that person was okay. And honestly, it doesn't matter, because even if they weren't, it was completely worth it. And as good as these videos are, Chiijohn is somehow even better at Twitter, with a virtuosic deployment of memes. Just look at this. Hello, Burb. Hello, Pulitzer Prize for Poetry. Here's another magnificent example. Don't ever talk to my son, or my son's son, or my son's son's son, or my son's 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 son ever again. Just try saying that without laughing. It's physiologically impossible. Asking me to pick a favourite Chiijohn tweet is like asking me to pick a favourite son, or son's son, or son's son. The point is, it'd be difficult, but I would probably have to say this one, in which Chiijohn, standing next to a small kangaroo, asks, is this a pigeon? I mean, come on! Clearly the question is rhetorical. Chiijohn is famously excellent at recognising burbs. When's the last time Twitter made you happy? When's the last time anything made you happy? The problem is, even I will admit that Chiijohn's occasionally gone a bit too far, like with this video titled, Chiijohn is going to visit your house. I accept. Even the most generous interpretation of that is that Chiijohn is going to come to your house and beat you to death with a baseball bat. And I do get why a city might not want that message delivered by a self-appointed unofficial mascot. But I am sorry for Susaki that he's gone. And I'd also like you to spare a thought for their official mascot, Chiijohn, who is also, as we've established, excellent. Not as splashy as Chiijohn, sure, but still wears a noodle bowl for a hat, and that's not nothing, is it? Chiijohn was clearly overshadowed by an unhinged, psychotic, unsanctioned otter. And while I'm sure that there's an element of relief there for Chiijohn, there's also going to be a massive Chiijohn-shaped hole in its life now. The two mascots were together a lot. And I have to say, whenever you see Chiijohn alone now, the obvious sadness there is absolutely heartbreaking. What I'm saying here is, it's clear that Chiijohn needs a new friend. This time one that won't disappear or threaten the citizens of Susaki with a baseball bat. Luckily, as we now know, anyone can make an unofficial mascot for a city in Japan. And if you don't already know where this is heading, you've clearly never watched this fucking show before, because of course we made our own mascot. Of course we did. Please meet Chiijohn. Chiijohn is a 41-year-old, nearsighted English fairy baby. Now, ordinarily, when there's a new mascot on this show, I get up from this desk and walk over there to introduce you to him in person. The bad news is, I can't actually introduce you to Chiijohn in person tonight. The good news is, the reason I can't do that is because he's already in Japan. It's true. Here he is, having the time of his life in Tokyo. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, OK, I get it, John. You just created a mascot to go to Japan and fuck with people. But no, you don't actually get it. You don't get it at all. We made Chiijohn with the sole intention that he locate and comfort Chiijohn and fill the hole that Chiijohn left in his heart. And for a sense of whether he was able to do that, you should probably take a look at this.
After a long flight, Chiijohn arrived in Tokyo. He'd never seen anything like it, because he just got glasses the day before. Tomorrow he'd visit Susaki, but tonight belonged to Tokyo. Violently hungover, Chiijohn got up the next morning, and as he looked through the clouds toward Susaki, he remembered the reason he was here. Chiijohn. He was 100% sure they were meant to be together, and 40% sure he was looking at Susaki. All the way to the train station, Chiijohn's heart pounded. Each step was a step closer to his destiny. After a while, he got tired of taking steps and took a rickshaw. Each step of his rickshaw driver was a step closer to his destiny. At last, Susaki. Chiijohn was everywhere. On the stairs, on the sidewalk, on the walls, and in the streets. On his way, Chiijohn introduced himself to all the local fish. This is the path that falls at Chiijohn's feet. This is the breeze that cools Chiijohn's face. This is the sun that warms the noodles that Chiijohn wears as a hat. And knowing this filled Chiijohn with joy. The final steps to his destiny were uphill. Aren't they always? Finally, Chiijohn saw Chiijohn, his new best friend. Chiijohn didn't know if he was ready for a new best friend. He had had a best friend, Chiijohn, and it had been a fucking living nightmare. But Chiijohn seemed different. Less upper body strength, for one thing. At the local arcade, they used sticks to whack moles, not each other. Though they share an appetite for destruction, destroying something together is an act of creation. Chiijohn made Chiijohn happy, and Chiijohn wanted Chiijohn to have a Chiijohn so Chiijohn could be happy too. But Chiijohn couldn't get Chiijohn a Chiijohn, and this made them sad. Now, sadness was another thing they shared. Chiijohn tried to cheer Chiijohn up. He put on Chiijohn's thinking cap. Suddenly, he knew just what to do. Introduce themselves to some local fish. Chiijohn taught Chiijohn how to take one stick and make two sticks. It was the best day of their lives. Without the sadness at the claw machine, Chiijohn never would have felt this joy. And if his old best friend hadn't left, his new best friend never would have come. That's too much soy sauce, Chiijohn said. No, replied Chiijohn. It's not enough fish. Chiijohn had found his new best friend. A little chaos fulfills the spirit and prepares us for all the claw machines ahead. They saw their path and felt their breeze and saw their sun. Where is our sun going? Chiijohn asked. Do not worry, said Chiijohn. We'll have our sun back tomorrow. And our sun's son. And our sun's son's son. And our son's 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 son.
Admit it, none of us thought this was where our show was going tonight, and yet here we are now. Chiijohn, and this is true, is still in Japan. The city of Susaki have now officially taken ownership of him. So if you ever want to see Chiijohn in the flesh or in the fur, you will simply have to go there. That is our show. Thank you so much for watching. We're off next week. See you again on May